This video has 28 tips on how to play Royal Hogs Royal Recruits decks. Royal Hogs Royal Recruits, Royal Hogs Royal Recruits, Royal Hogs Royal Recruits. Son of a... Tip number 1 for Royal Hogs Royal Recruits is that if you know they have a Mega Knight, you should try your best to hold your recruits until their Mega Knight crosses over to your side, because if you allow them to defend your recruits with their Mega Knight, you're probably going to get wrecked. Tip number 2 is that if they have a Mega Knight and you don't have your recruits ready for it, you should try to have your Goblin cage ready. The Goblin Brawler is pretty tanky, and as you can see over there, I was able to pull the Mega Knight over. The Goblin Brawler is a pretty good defense for the Mega Knight if you don't have your recruits available. Tip number 3 is that if you have a couple Zappies approaching the bridge and you don't want to let them go to waste, you can split the pigs in front of the Zappies to help get more Zappy value. As you can see, this helped me get more damage on both of his towers, and yeah, it's usually safer to split the pigs than to play all of them in one lane. Tip number 4 is that if you're low on elixir, but you can still afford one card and they spam something at the bridge that targets one troop at a time, you can use this Zappy placement over here to pull things way over to the middle of the arena, and that should be able to save you in some sticky situations. Tip number 5 is that the best and really your only cheap counter to the miner in this deck is the bar barrel. So if you know they're gonna miner, just be ready with a bar barrel and you should be able to limit their damage. Tip number 6 is that if your opponent cycles something in the back, and especially if it's slow or in the air like that Inferno Dragon or an Electro Dragon, you want to play a different card besides your flying machine so that you can save your flying machine so that it doesn't just go fast and go onto their side of the arena. Tip number 7 is that if you're gonna go Royal Recruits, you want to make sure you're trying to get value in both lanes. So over here, I was able to stop that mini P.E.K.K.A. and I was able to keep the E-Wiz and the Inferno Dragon off my flying machine, so those recruits definitely got me a lot of value. And this clip is just a quick reminder of tip number 2, which is that if you don't have your recruits ready for the Mega Knight, make sure to go with the Goblin cage, because as you can see, the Goblin cage is a pretty great counter to the Mega Knight, especially if you have other troops helping out too. Tip number 8 is kind of obvious, but you want to avoid going all 4 Royal Hogs in one lane if they have Mega Knight. That was the very end of the game, so it didn't really matter, but still, you want to avoid going all 4 pigs at once if you know they have a Mega Knight in hand. And tip number 9 is that if you beat somebody who's using a Mega Knight, make sure to give them a little bit of BM, but keep it classy, guys. Don't overdo it. Don't be like those kids who just BM the entire game nonstop. You'd be surprised the power of one emote. Moving on, we got tip number 10 right here for Royal Hogs Royal Recruits, and it is that if you have a starting hand like this and they go with a hog at the bridge first play, you want to play your Zappies because they're a pretty decent counter to the hog. They will have to spend at least 4 elixir, usually a fireball, to be able to quickly get rid of your Zappies. So that's why going Zappies isn't too bad, even though a lot of times they allow 2 hits to the hog. But if you're going to go Zappies to counter a hog, you have to be careful because a lot of times they'll fireball the Zappies right away, but this guy ended up going in for a freeze. So then I had to go for a quick bar barrel there to make sure that that hog didn't do too much damage. Tip number 11 for Royal Hogs goes off of a situation like this. So I just took a ton of damage. It's single elixir, and your temptation would usually be to go in right there, but I saved my elixir instead, played my flying machine on defense, and now I have a much better opportunity to counter push than if I just spammed at the bridge right away. Tip number 12 for Royal Hogs Royal Recruits is that if you're unsure of if they have a Mega Knight or not, you never know, this guy could have still had one. Splitting the pigs in front of a flying machine is a great play, especially in single elixir when you still don't know what all of their cards are yet. Tip number 13 for this deck is that if it's single elixir and you know you're up elixir and you have to play something in the back to avoid leaking elixir, you should almost always play your Zappies in the back unless you know you're going against Lumberloon. In all other matchups, playing your Zappies split in the back is pretty much always a safe play. Tip number 14 is that if you split your Zappies in the back and they don't do anything for the entire time as they approach the bridge, then you can go Royal Recruits in front. But I would avoid doing this if you know they have a Mega Knight, because then they're just going to slap a Mega Knight right down on one of the sides and get so much value. Tip number 15 is that most of of the time, you don't want to go in for pigs as soon as you hit 5 elixir. Sometimes with a hog rider, it's tempting to just drop it as soon as you get to 4 elixir, but you'd be surprised how often waiting till full and then just cycling arrows on their weaker tower is the better play. You save some elixir, and especially if it turns to double elixir, by the time they react to your arrows play, they're really not even going to be up elixir. So I guess tip 15 can really be summarized by just only go in for royal hogs when you're sure that you can get damage. Don't just play them because you have enough elixir. Tip number 16 is that against a freeze player, whether it be hog freeze, balloon freeze, or graveyard freeze, you have to split up your troops. As you can see, my opponent had to freeze the tower and the flying machine right there, but the goblin brawler was still alive. That was huge right there because, as you'll see, this game came down to just a couple hundred HP. But yeah, tip 16, split up your troops when they have a freeze. Tip number 17 for royal hogs, royal recruits, is that if it's nearing the end of the game and your tower's getting kind of low, don't just panic and spam things at the bridge because it's probably not going to work. It's much better to play like this and cycle something in the back to start building up a big push. As you can see, my opponent went for a Skarmy at the bridge so that he could cycle all the way back to his Valk Hog freeze combo, but I knew that that was a ton of elixir, and if I could just keep this hog from getting one more hit, then I could probably win this, and you'll see I ended up building up a huge push from the back to come back and win. But part of the reason I was able to pull off this defense is because of tip number 18, which is that if they go hog freeze or balloon freeze, you need to save your fireball sometimes, because without that fireball right there, I wouldn't have been able to keep the hog rider off my tower. This comeback also would have been impossible without tip number 19, which is that if you know they have a Skarmy, you have to have enough elixir for your arrows when you go in for pigs. As you can see, I'm holding my arrows right there, and I just play it at 0 elixir. We time the Skarmy prediction perfectly, and we get the dub. Tip number 20 for royal hogs, royal recruits, is that if you have some zappies coming in and they have a Tesla down, you can counter push by leading your royal hogs with a bar barrel, because the bar barrel will help take out the Tesla really fast. As you can see, my opponent had to go for delivery and a fire spirit, and I was still able to get a few hundred damage on that right tower. Tip number 21 is also another good one for the Tesla. It's that if you cycled some recruits in the back and now they're coming in, but they have a Tesla to help deal with it, you can go with a flying machine in the middle, but make sure it's behind your recruits so that it can help take out the Tesla without getting hit. Here, as you can see, we were able to take out that Tesla, and then even though his archer queen stayed alive for a while, our recruits on the right got so much damage. Tip number 22 is that if you're playing against a hog cycle earthquake player, you know that they probably don't have fireball too, so one of the best plays you can make is cycle a flying machine on defense to your weak tower and then go recruits in front of it. As you can see here, I was able to come in, take out that archer queen and the Tesla because of that defensive flying machine. It's really just recognizing that earthquake cycle players don't have a good answer to the flying machine, so you want to take advantage of that and use it on defense. Tip number 23 for royal hogs, royal recruits, is if your opponent goes for an archer queen in the back first play, definitely just fireball that. Don't play a card like a flying machine or a bar barrel that's just going to go into the queen and get shot by her. Definitely just fireball the queen, take the tower damage, and you'll have other answers even if they have royal hogs. Tip number 24 is that if you take a bunch of damage, especially in single elixir, and you still don't know what their whole deck is, don't just rush with pigs, because it's very tempting to try to get that damage back. But honestly, here you see I waited and just went with arrows. Now, don't go with arrows if you know they're playing a goblin barrel or a log bait deck, but there I just went with arrows cycle. By the time he played his queen, he wasn't even really up elixir at all, and then I just fireballed the queen too. So just like that, I saved my pigs, and I still got like 400 damage on the tower. Tip number 25 is that if you want to play zappies, but you know they have poison, definitely play your zappies up like this. Even that, he could have still hit my tower a little bit, but as you can see, it kind of forced him to just poison the middle of the arena there, and I don't want him getting that poison damage on my tower. Tip number 26 is gonna be kind of a series of plays that you need to learn in double elixir for this deck, especially against P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam. This is very effective. So step 1 is cycle your zappies in the back, just like one of the previous tips was. Then you go recruits in front of the zappies so that you have both lanes looking very menacing like that. Then you can play a flying machine in the middle and then go Royal Hogs split after it. This way you have the recruits with the zappies combo and then you have Royal Hogs flying machine. The reason you go flying machine in the middle before the Royal Hogs is that sometimes it can cause your opponent to hesitate a little bit and think about how they want to counter your flying machine, especially if they don't have fireball. I'd use this combo against P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam all the time because it's really just a great way to take advantage of an easy matchup. When you're using this deck, you really never want to lose to P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam because the recruits are so good against the P.E.K.K.A. and if they don't have fireball especially, then your flying machine can go to work. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight this combination as a great way to win a lot of the easy matchups that you'll get with this deck. Tip number 27 is that if you use this flying machine in the middle strategy against P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam, a lot of times they'll drop an E-Wiz on top of it. So if you're ready with a quick bar barrel, usually you can keep your flying machine alive just like that and get even more value. Tip number 28 for Royal Hogs Royal Recruits is usually the last tip that I almost always do in my deck guides, and it's to know your spell cycle damage. At max ladder, the arrows do 147 and the fireball does 274. So right there, I honestly could have arrowed the tower. It would have been even faster. But you got to know that fireball plus arrows does 421. So each cycle that you can do 421 as long as you can get some spell value. Well, there we go, guys. 28 tips for Royal Hogs Royal Recruits. If you guys haven't dropped a like on this video and you made it this far, you definitely got to hit that like button right now, guys, because I think this is my most in-depth deck guide in Clash Royale that I've ever made. And guys, I want to get even better than this from here on out with some other decks too. So leave in the comments some other decks, guys. Give me some comments. Definitely drop a like on this video and subscribe because this one definitely took a little bit longer to put together than some of the other ones. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching today's Royal Hogs Royal Recruits deck guide on how to play Royal Hogs Royal Recruits. Say that 5 times fast. Royal Hogs Royal Recruits, Royal Hogs Royal Recruits, Royal Hogs Royal Recruits. All right, enough of that. I will see you guys next time, which is later today at 2 p.m. for my live stream and on Sunday at this time with another Clash Royale video.